When we have Aiyuk questions, we go to TJ Hushmanzada. Closest thing we can do to get to the guy. Brandon sent out an IG story today. OTA day 5.
Okay.
He was running routes in center field of some youth baseball diamond.
Yeah, not in Santa Clara, right?
No, he caught them all, though. He caught them all. So he got that. He looks great. He looks great in camp, Dibs.
Right.
I like the player.
In center field. He's running some good routes in the outfield.
Yeah, he ended up in left field.
Right.
Like he started in center, kind of right center, actually. And then he caught it in fair territory and left. So
2 feet in before the foul line.
That's a double. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ground rule.
Exactly.
So funny.
So where do Brandon Aiyuk and CeeDee Lamb, and you brought this up yesterday, eventually, I think he's a year behind, but Jamar Chase, where do these three players go now? Because
to the bank, Mark.
Well, sure, but right, there's Amon-Ra and Jalen Waddle, and there's those deals.
Yep.
And then there's Justin Jefferson, who, by the way, for those of you who aren't familiar with the new contracts for those players, forget the average annual value, because you'll see that Amon-Ra got $30 million and Justin Jefferson got $35. Oh, seems pretty similar. Okay, Brandon will get some 32 and move on. No. It's all about the guarantee.
Yeah.
And Amon-Ra, I think, got, was it 34? Amon-Ra?
Yep, 34.6. Yep.
Yeah, and Justin Jefferson got more than twice that.
Right, 88.7.
So what do you do? Brandon Aiyuk and CeeDee Lamb, both holding out of OTAs. What do you do? That is my number one question for TJ Hushmanzada today, because he's not just Brandon's coach. Many of you know, longtime NFL, very successful wide receiver. So let's talk about that market. And if he were Brandon, what would you go ask for? What is that number?
Right.
What's the number? Because did Justin's deal just blow this all up to where now both sides are going to dig in? David Lombardi told us yesterday that he thinks maybe.
I just think that the chances of something getting done really quickly, sooner rather than later, took a blow, because what happened yesterday is a polarizing event. It's a huge amount of money for the top-paid receiver in the game, and of course receivers who are looking for money are going to gravitate toward that precedent, and they're going to want the teams to accept that precedent as well. And the teams are in no way incentivized to accept that precedent until they actually have to. So you just have two opposing camps right now, but eventually a deal will get done, because both parties eventually will want it to get done. Both parties are incentivized for that to happen. The deadline just isn't here yet.
Yeah, I keep saying this to people, and I feel like a lot of people are still very uncomfortable with it. Buckle up.
What's June 6th?
It's going to take a minute. It's going to take a minute.
It's going to take more than a minute. It's going to probably take 2 months. So it's June 6th, and I put the over-under before at August 1st, and you took the over, and many people would take the over at August 1st. And if I move the line to, I don't know, September 1st, you might think about it. I mean, you hope it's the under. You hope it happens before September 1st, but it might not, It
might not. And I hate that date. I don't like that date at all.
No.
Is that game week? What's the date of the first game?
I'll look it up. I think it's later.
I got you.
Yeah, it's a little bit later, maybe at the 10th or whatever.
You're Monday, September 9th. So September 1st would be Sunday before the Sunday.
Right, game week. Sunday before the Thursday, which is the opener.
Yeah, 4 days before the opener.
Right, which would be, that's too tight. That's way too tight.
I don't like that one at all.
No, of course not.
That feels like a hamstring injury.
Yeah. Or an adductor. Shout out Blake Snell.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to say this right now as a Bay Area sports fan. I'm all kinds of triggered with the whole, just skip camp. I'm all triggered now because Bosa came in and they sold us on, he's working out on his own and it'll be fine. And then he played fine, but 3 weeks later, he's like, a little slow.
Right.
And then here comes Blake Snell, who's now been hurt twice, doesn't have a win yet for $31 million, and then publicly says, you need spring training. He goes, I know it sounds like an excuse, but it's also true. So this has been our Bay Area sports experience for the last 6 months. So no, I don't want September 1st.
Right. And you could add in Debo, who came in late as well, and he did not have a good year after he, didn't sign his deal until later in the cycle as well. So yeah, it could be later, and it's probably going to be after August 1st. I hope it's before September 1st, but it's going to be a long, protracted deal. And I look forward to talking to TJ Hushmanzada today and asking his thoughts about the Justin Jefferson getting 88.7 in actual guarantees, guaranteed at signing. The next highest one in this cycle is A.J. Brown, who got $51 million guaranteed at signing. And he got $32 million on the AAV, average annual value, which that has nothing to do with the actual guarantee, the guaranteed at signing, which was $51 million. But where does Brandon Aiyuk fall in TJ's eyes in between those numbers?
Well,
or in that neighborhood.
Did Amon-Ra get 30? What again, I know it's fake, but the average annual value.
$30 million, remember, and $2,500.
Okay. All right.
Because he beat Tyreek by $2,500 a year.
Okay. So, by the way, I'm sorry to be the bearer of this news. Oh, Brandon's getting over 30. He's getting over 30.
Yeah. Well, we had this discussion a couple of months ago, and I think you had him below 30.
I had him way below. No question.
Yeah. I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying
out. I said earlier this week I thought it was 28 or 29.
Right.
Earlier this week I thought it was 28 or 29. It is most definitely north of 30. But not way north of it. The A.J. Brown deal to me now helps the 49ers.
$32 million.
Because
AAV.
Right, because Justin is 35 and the guarantee is 88. But A.J. at 32 and guarantee of 51, I think the 49ers could rightfully argue, Brandon, you're not at A.J.'s level quite yet. You're not quite A.J. So forget Justin. If Justin's over here, we're going to use A.J. If you're Brandon Aiyuk, do you fall in between A.J. Brown and Jalen Waddle? I'd argue you do.
Yeah, and Jalen Waddle's getting 28 and a quarter a year, and he got 3 years, and his guaranteed at signing is only basically $36 million. And A.J. Brown, his guaranteed is $51 million. And he's getting $32 million on the AAV. Also a 3-year deal, incidentally.
I'm going to move this every day, so just call me a flip-flopper all you want.
No, it's fine. It's new information.
I am a flip-flopper on this one. So are we doing a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal for the extension?
Probably a 3-year extension, all right, so I would guess.
3-year extension for Brandon Aiyuk. And it's not really an extension. You're going to rip up the first year, the last year of this deal, essentially. But whatever.
And I'm looking at all these deals that were signed this year, and Justin Jefferson is 4, and then A.J. Brown 3, Amon-Ra was 4, and Waddle was 3. Devontae Smith was 3, Nico Collins was 3, Michael Pittman Jr. 3.
Okay, let's do 3. Okay. Let's do 3. As we sit here right now, I think it's a 3-year $92.5 million deal.
Okay.
With 45 guaranteed. You have to guarantee about half of it. I think that's what you're looking at. You comfortable with that?
If I'm Brandon Aiyuk, am I comfortable with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with it if you're the 49ers?
You have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be.
I'm like
Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley got 4 years and 92, and his guarantee was $47 million. But that's a 4-year deal.
That's a 4-year deal. And 92 total?
Yeah. So $23 million per year.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Brandon's
the guarantee was 47.
Yeah, but it's over. That's an extra year.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Brandon's guarantee go well over 50 if he gets a 4th year.
Right.
For sure.
But I'm just trying to put his guaranteed money in terms of what's already been signed. Mm-hmm. And A.J. Brown at 51, Ridley at 47, and then you've got, you go down to Michael Pittman Jr., whose guarantee is 41.
Here's why I'm going to give both sides a little bit of space. And I heard Stats Guerrero on with the morning show today and the circulating social media bite that everyone's playing. If the Niners really wanted to sign Brandon Aiyuk, they would have done it by now. No, I disagree. Here's why. can we all just acknowledge this is a weird one? Brandon is a weird one. I think he's incredible. I think he's a fantastic player. But we all have to acknowledge what we're dealing with here. It's no different than how you're all going to feel about Brock Purdy next year. Brock Purdy can run around and be the top-rated quarterback in the league, but none of you are going to go, so he's the best quarterback in the league. You don't think that. You know, and Brandon, the 49ers lead to statistical oddities. We have to acknowledge that when it comes to contract negotiations. The 49er offense, being the way it is, run by Kyle Shanahan with the number of great players on it, it leads to statistical outliers. Now, it does not mean these players aren't really good. I will fight for them every time. But you can't say, well, Brandon Aiyuk equals this, because I don't think there's another situation like him. Nobody else is doing 1,300 yards with like 6 targets.
Right.
Which is what he's, obviously stupid exaggeration, but
yeah.
Like, do you have it in front of you? Amon-Ra's targets versus Brandon Aiyuk's.
Oh, God. I think Amon-Ra had 150 targets.
Okay, here, let me pull it up. Let me get here we go. Here's the receiving leaders, and let's go to targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a little bit, he had a touch over
164.
164 targets, a touch over 1,500 yards. Brandon Aiyuk had about 260 less yards. 260 less yards than Amon-Ra St. Brown in
105 targets.
Okay.
So 60 fewer targets.
59 fewer targets.
Yep.
Run that over 17 games. That's 3 more balls that are getting thrown at Amon-Ra that Brandon doesn't even see. Okay? So how do you now figure it out? You got to get to all the advanced stuff. But yes, I hear the arguments that, oh, well, Brandon Aiyuk is, to a degree, a product of his surroundings like we do with all the 49er players. And therefore, I'm not putting Brandon Aiyuk in the same sentence as CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill. We're not doing that, okay? What are you doing with him then? Because he does more with less.
Right. He does almost more with less than anyone in football.
So the problem is I can see both arguments. Like right?
And that's where when you sit down at the table, there's going to be a certain amount of impasse because the Niners are going to look at it and say, well, you know, Amon-Ra had 160 targets and he had all these catches and, you know, Brandon Aiyuk, you were 33rd in the league in catches. So, yeah, you're good. We value you. But, you know, honestly, to want to be paid like one of these real top guys, we just don't see it.
And Brandon goes, hey, click on one of the other stats.
How about yards per reception?
There you go. Click on that one.
He was number two.
Number 2.
Amon-Ra was 42nd in yards per reception.
There you go. There you go. Oh, by the way.
How about success percentage?
Okay. Let's
which
hear it.
A successful reception gains at least 40% of the yards required on first down, 60% on second down, 100% on third and fourth down. He was 3rd in the league in success percentage behind 2 guys you've never heard of.
Ooh.
The aforementioned Khalil Shakir.
I have heard of him.
And Durham Smythe.
I have not heard of him.
The tight end for Miami.
What, did he get 1 ball?
No, 35 catches.
Really?
Durham Smythe.
Really?
Smythe.
Durham Smythe had 35 catches this year?
Yeah. And a success percentage. I'm looking right at it. 72% success. He was a 3rd down machine. Forget 3rd and Jawan. 3rd and Smythe.
Durham Smythe. Whatever.
28-year-old tight end. But Brandon Aiyuk is 3rd on that list.
Click on average yards per catch.
Yeah, I did that. He's second. Only to George Pickens.
Yep. Yeah. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
He's a tricky one.
Very tricky.
He's a tricky one.
And you're right about the Niners making it so that all these guys are tricky ones because they share the ball.
Right.
It's like having an NBA team where you have 4 guys who average 17 points a game.
Debo's tricky.
Yeah.
Debo's tricky. They figured it out, and then we all now think they're also going to duck out a little bit early on it. But he's a tricky one because he's different than every other player in the NFL. Remember, the contract negotiation is coming out of him literally running the ball from all different spots out of the offensive field, the backfield, wide out, running the ball, catching the ball from all over the place, and he dragged the team into the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game by himself sometimes. And that makes him very tricky. The only non-tricky offensive player on the 49ers is Christian McCaffrey. I guess maybe Trent Williams, but we're not talking about a new deal for him.
Right.
McCaffrey, you're like, yep, I got it. You're kind of like the dude. We see that.
But he's also tricky because you're paying him more than any other running back in football, and you gave him a raise. So he went from number one among running backs to number one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great
even
point.
More number one.
They didn't really give him a big raise. They guaranteed the money.
Right.
They guaranteed the money.
And they threw a little bit on top.
And then they put frosting and sprinkles on
exactly.
it. And they're like, all right, yeah. Jump change actually saved the 49ers money.
Right, but they did that because he is special and he's unique. And it's exactly what you're talking about. And you look at their catches, and it's Aiyuk with 75, McCaffrey 67, and it's Kittle 65 and Debo 60. So no one guy of those four is going to dominate as far as catches or yards or touchdowns. They share the ball, which kind of mutes all four of them, really.
It's another great question for TJ. How do you, and this is a great question for all of you, 888-957-9570, how do you assess Brandon Aiyuk? Because I really find him, I don't have any question when you're like, is he a top 10, top 15 receiver? Yes. Like, I can look at the guy, and all of us, we can look at him and tell that he can really play. But when you get into the contractual game and people start bringing up specific numbers, what are the ones that matter to you? You know, if I'm Brandon's agent, there's a bunch of stuff that I can point to. And then there's all the stuff we're sitting here clicking all the different little statistical numbers. There's a bunch of stuff that's got nothing to do with. If I'm Brandon, I'm also highlighting a couple other things. Hey, Niners, I block downfield. You require that. I'm amazing at it. I'm very good after the catch. You require that. I'm amazing at it. And here's maybe the real winner. You know what I am, 49ers? I'm a 49er.
I'm a winner. Yeah.
I'm a 49er. You're going to replace me with somebody who's going to come in, and every offensive player always tells us how long it takes to really settle in with the Kyle Shanahan playbook and all the complexities and all of that. You're going to replace me with someone who's never been here before? You got a guy that's 3 years in, and he's actually been into the foxhole and argued with Kyle Shanahan, and he's come out the other side and been tremendously successful. That's valuable. That's very, very valuable. But it's hard for us to sit here and measure that against the open market because none of that is open market stuff. How do you quantify, qualify? What do you do with that idea? I'm a Niner, and it's like talking to Draymond and the Warriors. Like, these numbers don't mean anything on the open market, but you all know how important he is to the Warriors. I think there's a level of that with Brandon Aiyuk and the Niners.
Absolutely, and I think they know that internally, but when it comes time to pay somebody for that, that's a tough one for the agent to quantify and say, well, it's got to be an extra $5 million guaranteed based on the fact that, you know, he stood up to Kyle Shanahan and, you know, they had this discussion or they had this difference of opinion and, you know, he was able to toe the line and do the right thing. So you got to throw a little bit extra on that. That's not how these negotiations work usually.
No, they don't. They don't. But it's like that's why I'm willing to sit here and say, yeah, well, let's give you guys a minute.
Right.
This one's hard. And we're not all the way to the finish line yet. I do wonder
not
this.
Even close.
No, I wonder this. There's another good question we could ask TJ. Does it matter, like if you're the Niners, do you want to beat the Cowboys to the punch? Does it matter to you if you do this before or after CeeDee Lamb?
I think so.
That to me is something we can watch. August 1st, August 15th.
Right.
Are we scared? Training camp. I don't really give a rip about the first 2 weeks of August for Brandon Aiyuk. I don't. But I do think right now there could be an interesting conversation with regard to who goes first between Aiyuk and CeeDee, because those two guys are pretty comparable. They come out of the same draft, the same round. And CD, I think, has a tick on Brandon, whether it's most stats or even just the way people sort of feel about them as receivers. But then again, he plays in an offense that's hucking the ball all over the place all the time. I think those two guys are pretty comparable. And if CD walks in and blows past A.J. Brown, that could spell some trouble for the 49ers and Aiyuk.
Absolutely, and I'll ask TJ about the Justin Jefferson contract, if that is one that they're looking at, the Aiyuk camp, as far as, maybe not a comp, but something that moves up his number a little bit, because, and I think CD Lamb is a great example of that. He was first in the league last year in catches, first in the league in targets, and he was second in yards, and he had more TDs than Brandon Aiyuk. And I do know that it's not only about the numbers with BA. Certainly, we've talked about it. It's the blocking and the fact that you'll never put up those kind of numbers in the Shanahan offense. But if CD Lamb does jump up and go by A.J. Brown in the actual guaranteed at signing and the average annual value, if he's up in that low 30 range, if I'm Brandon Aiyuk, I'm saying, all right, my price just went up.
Yeah.
So I do think it's important that the Niners get there before that.
Ask TJ that. I'll tell you what his answer is already.
Yeah, it'll be yeah. And when I ask him about the Justin Jefferson, did that make you guys happy?
Hell yes.
It absolutely did.
Hell yes.
BA's worth every dollar that Justin Jefferson is.
Well, no.
That's what he'll say.
No, he won't. No, he won't. He won't say that. Nobody's getting the Justin deal. That's the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the league. No one's getting that deal. But did it drive the market up?
For sure. And that's why I think, and I said this before he even signed, I think that the Niners are missing out. I think the Niners are costing themselves money by waiting.
I really wonder. I wonder about that, because I think you get the sense right now, who's more upset that this isn't done in this moment? Brandon. Brandon's the one on social media putting emojis out, and I'm not sharing my food with anyone, all this. The Niners are like, we do this every summer.
Right.
With someone. We're fine.
Well, Brandon's doing what Brandon does. He's doing what the players do, which is put it out on social media and let the fans know that I'm the one. The fans are more interested in him being signed than they are with the Niners having to spend a